Howdy folks, it's time to saddle up because the bare-rooted revolution is riding into town. Yeah! Bare-rooted bargains, so good you'll be yelling yeah all the way to the garden bed. Standard roses, all colours, $14.99. Ornamental pears, $14.99. And self-pollinating cherries, only $19.99. And gorgeous red maples, just $21.99. Over 100 rootin' tootin' deals. And if that ain't got you galloping in, spend over $300 and get a free weeping cherry. Yeah! Saddle up and get plantin', partner. Hi, this is Lynn and Harry, and they've got a 5-acre property in Seymour, and they came down to Campbellfield to get bare rooted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what you've got now, you've got sunburst honey locusts, and they're about 8 foot tall, and you paid $19.90 each for them. What do you reckon about a deal like that?
I reckon I stole them.
Yeah, it's a bit like shoplifting, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You've got yourself standard roses, and they've cost you $14.99. Good bargain?
Yes, definitely.
How long have you been getting bare rooted down at Hello Hello for?
10 years.
Yeah,
Yep,
right.
ever since we've been planting the garden out in the property, we've helloed often. If you've got to create a garden, you couldn't do better than come here.
Thank you very much for that. Thanks for coming down. Thanks a lot.
Terrific.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Don't wait, the garden's calling. Click now. Tap the link and let's go. Now's the time to stock up on standard roses. We've got 3-foot standard roses, all different colours, thousands of them in stock, all $29.99. So whether you need 4 of one colour or half a dozen different ones, all $29.99. And then you've got standard icebergs at $16.99. So look at this beautiful standard iceberg, $16.99. And 3-foot standard icebergs, just $29.99. So now's the time to stock up on standard roses because there's thousands to choose from, all bare rooted, easy to transport, easy to plant, and very, very cheap at $29.99. The classic Melbourne garden is standard roses and English box, and we've got thousands of beautiful English box 6-inch pot for $4.99. To keep us busy in the cold weather, spend over $300 and get a $100 weeping cherry for free. Wow.
I just want to say it is phenomenal.
Amazing.
Awesome surprise.
And that's what we do. When people spend over $300, everybody gets a free weeping cherry. It's a $100 weeping cherry. What do you reckon?
It is the most unexpected surprise.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, I like it.
It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, Hello Plants.
That is amazing.
Thanks, Chris.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yay! The free weeping cherries are on me. Finally, inner peace. I've been getting bare rooted since I was in nappies, and I'm still at it. Every winter, like clockwork, my family gears up for the bare rooted season. My father grew them. I grew up planting and packing them. And now we sell tens of thousands every year. And every year, once we fill all the orders, we do a massive sale to clear the rest. Standard roses, all colours, $14.99. Ornamental pears, 3 and 4 foot, $14.99. Fruiting cherries, self-pollinating, $19.99. And red maples, $21.99. Over 100 bare-rooted specials. Spend over $300 and get a $100 weeping cherry for free. Giddy up! Yeah! It's time to get bare-rooted. Bare-rooted plants, that is. Now what it is in the wintertime, the growers dig the plants from the fields and they dig them just bare-rooted. And I'll show you what I mean. Like, here's an ornamental pear here. Have a look at this. And see, it's come out and it's bare-rooted. The roots like that. These are $69.99 and look, they're 2.5 meters tall.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to our live Q&A. If you're new here, I'll tell you a little bit about it, but if you are a returning member, welcome. So our live Q&As are a space where you can come with any questions you have about plants, about maybe your garden design, anything at all.
Now, what we need, excuse me, I'll get someone to come and help you. I've got to do it live here now online.
Just while Chris is helping a customer, I'll just keep telling you about the live Q&A.
Suman.
So you can come with any problems you have. Maybe there's a plant that's dying.
No, the customers
maybe it's not doing too well.
Suman.
Maybe you have
Suman,
a garden
could you
design
come
that
over
you're
here,
about to
please?
start and you need a little
No,
bit of help
no,
just
come over
to
here.
figure out what kind of feature trees to get in, or typical kind of flowering plants.
Okay.
Anything at all.
Suman will look after you, okay,
to
for your
come
order
up
for
with
today.
those questions. And it's super simple. All you need to do is comment your question and Chris will answer it in live time. So just going to give people some time to get their questions ready and comment it below. So in the meantime, do you want to tell us, Chris, what's happening in the nursery?
Right, okay. Well, the sun's come out, it's warmed up, blossoms. We got it. We went and made a video of our first spring blossoms on Friday, or Thursday it was. And we found quite a few magnolias out in flower. So, the people's favourite magnolia, the black tulip, is just coming into flower in the nursery. So we've got plum blossoms starting to blossom, and so now's the time to sort of start thinking about your blossoms and getting in and getting your blossoms. And we've got quite a good range of different plum blossoms in the nursery. Also, the flowering quince is flowering around Melbourne, and we've got those in the nursery as well. So flowering quince, your magnolias are just starting to flower. I've seen white Denudata magnolias in flower, the purple, the black tulip, and the early pink magnolia. And what's great is a lot of years I haven't had good early pink magnolias in the nursery, but this year we do have good early pink. And a good early pink is a cutting grown one that's going to flower from a young age. And they're the ones, that classic sort of mauvey pink one that you see all around Melbourne, just coming to blossom this week and next week all over Melbourne. So that's kind of the news in the nursery. But we've also been very busy because that little bit of warmer weather, people have they've seen a few buds bursting in their garden, and we were flat chat this weekend and flat chat all last week.
Amazing. We'll start with the first question. What are the best plants for beginners to start with?
Okay, so when people come to me for a garden design, and I must have 4 or 5 of them every weekend come to me for a garden design, and it's their first garden. They've maybe been living at home with mum and dad, or they've been in a unit somewhere, and they've just bought their first house and they've got their first garden. And what my idea is to give those people a win. And how you give people a win is you give them something that's really a nice plant, and there's lots of really nice plants that are really easy to grow. So things like coprosmas, beautiful colourful foliage, and really almost impossible to kill. And for a tree like a crepe myrtle, our crepe myrtle, you can get them with white flowers, pink flowers, mauve flowers, and I can't remember the last time somebody came to me and said that they planted crepe myrtle and it didn't grow. And so things like crepe myrtles, nandinas, a lot of your cottage plants, really like your seaside daisies and your society garlic, a lot of those are just so easy to grow. So my main thing with novice gardeners is you give them a little bit of a rundown on how to, they don't really normally know about the preparation, and I think soil preparation is very, very important. Mixing in a bit of potting mix, getting rid of the weeds, a bit of fertiliser, watering, you cover those sorts of issues, and then basically you go for that plant you can't kill. One of the best plants that you just can't kill is your Indian hawthorn, and you've got ones like your snow pearl, which grows into a lovely round ball that you don't have to trim, and then you've got your snow maiden, which makes a lovely dense, tight sort of a hedge. And with Indian hawthorns, nandinas, a lot of your hardier cottage plants, a person really can't go wrong. And if you go for that easy stuff, stay away from your gardenias, stay away from the hard to grow things, and like gardenias and daphnes, and go for that easy stuff, and you'll be right.
Amazing. Next question is from Sue. How do I feed my weeping cherry trees so they blossom really well?
Miracle Grow. Miracle Grow, you could put in the growing season, if you put Miracle Grow, a good heavy dose of Miracle Grow, sort of so heavy that you're giving a good drench with it, but a really good heavy dose of Miracle Grow, and it won't just make you weeping cherry flower, it's been designed, it's got very high phosphorus levels, and it's been designed to make things flower. And I've had people who've had something that have never flowered, use the heavy program of Miracle Grow, and things start flowering.
Fantastic. Next question from Mile is, got a beautiful orchid and not sure how often to water it.
Really, with your orchid, and your orchid mix, normally it's real chunky and very, very free draining, and you can really, because it's so free draining, you can water it really as often as you like. If you're in that right sort of light orchid mix where the water just falls straight through it, you could pretty much water it every day except when it's raining.
Yes.
But if you had it in a heavier soil mix, you might have to be a little bit careful with it and just water it when it really needs watering. But with a proper light orchid mix where the water just runs through, and I've seen in Vietnam, they make special orchid pots which have holes in them everywhere, so the water just drains away.
Amazing. Next question is, can I still grow plants if my balcony faces north? Any shade-loving plant recommendations?
Yes, you can, but what you have to do is you have to choose plants. Actually, I had to do a garden design yesterday, and they were, a youngish couple, and they had a big balcony facing north, up elevated, where it was going to get plenty of wind, and they wanted to have some pots to give a bit of green on the house and break up the look of the house. It was a very big, chunky sort of a house, and I thought about it, and I thought, they're going to go away for a week in summer and they're not going to water properly, and it's going to be, most plants, it would be a disaster there. And so I used big tall pots, and I used Burrow's Tail, which is a cascading sort of blue, silver grey sort of succulent. And then on top of it, I used one of the really fine bluebird jades, and that'll form a lovely bluey jade mound on top, and with blue-grey cascades all around. And I did that, and that was a north-facing windy balcony. So things like your jades, you want things that are really jades, agaves. Actually, for my daughter-in-law, she has such a balcony, and she needed something big and a bit spectacular, and we use a prickly pear cactus in a nice pot, and that's worked very nicely too. So I think if you go tough, and even things like coprosmas, really they're almost as tough as a cactus. So go tough, and with your north-facing balcony, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Next question is, when is the best time to repot a plant?
To repot a plant? Look, most plants, if you repot them properly, you could do it today. If they need repotting, do it today. Use some good potting mix, and you go up to a bigger pot, and it would only, like, where I'd be careful is, say I was doing like a Japanese maple, and I was just refreshing the soil and I was knocking a lot of dirt off, and I'd want to do it in the winter when the leaves are off, and that is a really good time. But if you're upsizing the plant into a bigger pot and just putting extra potting mix around it, and you're not damaging, disturbing, or doing anything with the roots, then I reckon today's the best time, like right now, and use some Osmocote to fertilise it, use good quality potting mix. But if you're using the same size pot and stripping back the roots and disturbing it, in the cooler months when it's dormant is the time to do it.
Yeah. Next question is, why are the leaves on my pothos turning yellow? How can I fix it?
On my leaves on my
Pothos?
pothos, right? Okay. Leaves on my pothos turning yellow. Something is wrong. That's why. Now, what could? Let me think about that. So, your pothos, for people who are listening, is your devil's ivy. And devil's ivy, when I was a young hippie type person, us hippies used to empty out a flagon of claret and fill it up with water and put the pothos in it, and then grow it all over the wall, and it could just simply grow in water or grow in anything. And if it's turning yellow, could it be, if you're using the same size pot and stripping back the roots and disturbing it, in the cooler months when it's dormant is the time to do it. Yeah. Next question is, if it's sort of slowly turning a bit yellow, it could be hungry and you could need some fertiliser like some Osmocote on it. If it's got very big in a small pot, you might pot it up into a bigger pot and give it a good feed. Or it could be sitting in a pot and sitting in too much water and getting a bit of root rot, getting a bit stagnant. So really the potential problems are not enough fertiliser, use some Osmocote. Too long in the one pot, needs to go to a bigger pot and have more room for the roots to spread and a bit of fertiliser, or sitting in some sort of sour, wet old ground that's sort of turning all rotten and terrible, in which case you'd need to go to a bigger pot, fresh potting mix and good drainage. But they are one of the easiest things to grow. Like I've just grown them in an old flagon, an old empty flagon and some water and just had them sitting in there, and they'll root in that and seem to suck their nutrients just out of the water. So they're very tough and easy to grow, and I would say it'll be fertiliser, roots, or sort of soggy, wet old pot, maybe not draining well enough.
Yeah. Next question is English box. How do I boost growth and make it grow quicker? How to grow fast, it's very slow.
Okay. So English box loves lime. And so if you were to, I would start off, unless I was in an area that was famously covered in lime, in which case your box would probably be going crazy. But if it's not going so good, I'd imagine you're going to be a little bit acid in your soil. You could always check that. But most of Melbourne is acid clay or acid whatever. So a good company to go to for good lime would be E.E. Muir and Sons. So I'll say that again, E.E. Muir, M-U-I-R and Sons, and they sell really good dolomite lime. And dolomite lime is the best lime to get. And if you had a hedge, say you had a 20 metre hedge, I'd buy 20 litres, or you'd have to buy it by the bag, it might be 25 litre bag, but 25, I'd buy, and you put 1 kilo per metre and you throw it right on top of the leaves. It won't hurt the leaves, you throw it right on top of your hedge, you go along the top of the edge, 1 kilo per metre, 1 kilo per metre, 1 kilo per metre, and leave it for a month. And then you could use any fertiliser you wanted. Like if you had a big property, you might use something like dynamic lifter. And what will happen is that what happens with English box is the interesting thing, is that you could put as much fertiliser on as you like, your dynamic lifter, your Osmocote, you put on as much as you like, but it will not work if it's got inadequate lime. So what you do is you put your dolomite lime on and you do 1 kilo per metre of hedge, then you leave it for 1 month, and then you go in with an NPK fertiliser, which would be like something like a lifter or an Osmocote, and you sprinkle that right along there, nice heavy dose. And what you'll find is all of a sudden your fertiliser will work when you've got that dolomite lime on the ground. And so that's the secret of growing box. And I've known sort of clever nurserymen. Some nurserymen don't even know that trick themselves, and so there'll be nurserymen that madly putting fertiliser on their box and it's all yellow and discoloured, and I've known nurserymen to buy that yellow box cheaply, get it, give it the dolomite lime treatment followed by the Osmocote, and turn it dark green and turn it into a small fortune. So it's a really handy trick that not even a lot of nurserymen know. So the box have a blockage where with inadequate calcium they can't utilise the nitrogen, the phosphorus and the potassium.
Yeah.
I was going to say NPK, but that's nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, which is what most of your normal fertilisers are made up of, and they don't have much lime in them.
Next question from Katie. How far apart should I plant Leighton green conifer so they look like trees more than a group hedge?
To look like trees, I reckon you'd have to grow 2.8 to 3 metres, and they'll look like trees. And they'll fill in as trees and they grow. They really are quite a handsome tree, and I love the colour of Leighton's green because it's not truly green, it's a little bit of blue-grey over green, and I love that colour, and it's great to put it around a nice garden or something like that, because I think almost any flower or any foliage looks really nice against that Leighton's green colour.
Yeah. Next question. Any tips to get a magnolia tree to flower buds? Are they got planted about this time last year?
Get a magnolia to flower?
Yeah.
Right, okay, so I was saying before, okay, so the problem you could have with a magnolia is that a grafted magnolia will flower in 1 to 2 years. A cutting grown magnolia will flower in 2 to 3 years, and a seedling magnolia could take 10 or 12 years to flower. So if your magnolia is grown from seed, you might be waiting for quite a while. And there are quite a few magnolias on the market. That's why I've been talking about the early pinks we've got here, and why I'm so excited. Is the last few years, the most of the Solangiana magnolias on the market were seedlings. And a customer would be waiting quite a while. But the early pinks that we've got at the moment, they're $22.99 non-special, 5 foot tall, but they've got flower buds on them already. They're 2 years old, but it's certainly by the 3rd year they'll be flowering beautifully, and that's because they're cutting grown. And so, so the first thing is, if you want to get a magnolia flowering nice and young, get a grafted one or a cutting grown one, and avoid the seedling ones. And then, if you've got one like that, I was talking about Miracle Grow. For what were we talking about making grow with Miracle Grow? I've forgotten. It was something earlier. I was talking about Miracle Grow. Somebody was wanting to know about getting something to flower. It was one. Could have been a second or third question. Anyway, Miracle Grow is great for getting anything to flower, and if you were to give it a good heavy dose of Miracle Grow once a month, that would certainly assist. But the problem is, if it's a seedling one and it's a 10-year wait, it's a 10-year wait, unfortunately. But if it's a cutting grown one or a grafted one, Miracle Grow will get you on the path to heavy flowering.
Yep. Jane would like any recommendations for some floral climbers that would do well in a shady area.
I missed.
Recommendations for some floral climbers that would do well in a shady area.
Okay, the number one climber for a shady area, I think, is Chinese Star Jasmine. I've got it at home and it is in complete shade and it's absolutely thriving. So Chinese Star Jasmine loves the shade, flowers beautifully. But I've noticed that the Happy Wanderer. Now, Happy Wanderer has variants like Whiteout, which is a white version of the Happy Wanderer, and then sometimes people put a Happy Wanderer, which is nice and blue and purple, and they put a white one in the pot with it, a Whiteout in the pot, and then they call it a Happy Duo. And the Happy Duo gives you beautiful purple and white flowers together, but Whiteout, Happy Duo, and Happy Wanderer like when I'm doing garden designs, I tend to use Chinese Star Jasmine as a first choice. If they want a sort of a native-y, more funky sort of thing, I go Happy Wanderer, Whiteout, or Duo, which is kind of almost all the same thing, but just variations of the same thing. But and then I guess what else does good in the shade? In a floral, there are other climbers that aren't so floral. I reckon there's one very old-fashioned, a bit hard to get these days, is called Tacoma capensis. Now, Tacoma capensis, beautiful, luscious, dark green evergreen, and right through the warm months of the year, lovely bright orange flowers. So Tacoma capensis, I think it's called a Cape honeysuckle, and it has a sort of a honeysuckle style flower. Lovely bright orange, beautiful evergreen, great in the shade.
Yeah. The person who was talking about the magnolia tree says they don't know whether it's seedling and they bought it off of us.
Right, okay, so we could, if they got hold of me, showed me a photo of it, we could work out what it is.
Yeah, if you sent us a DM on TikTok, if you sent us a photo, we can try and get back to you about what kind of magnolia it is. All right, the next question is from Alice. Suggestion please, 80 centimetre garden bed against back fence. Half gets no sun, half gets direct morning sun. 80 centimetres by 6 metres long.
Right, okay, and they'd like to plant it up. And so, 6 metres long, and half of it gets sun and half of it doesn't?
Yeah. And 80 centimetres width.
Okay, so 80 centimetres width, and it's on the back fence. And I'm thinking you may want to cover up the back fence. Now say you wanted to cover up the back fence, I reckon a really nice thing to plant would be, say, the fairy magnolia, and it was how many metres long? Was it
6 metres
6
long.
metres long. Say you were to put 4 fairy magnolias along there, and we've got those on special at the moment. We've got them, I think, for $24.90, and they're nearly 3 foot tall, and they have a beautiful white fragrant flower in summer. They're not a great big thing. You trim them off and keep them at fence height or just a little above fence height. So that sort of covers up the fence a bit. And then in between, so you've got 4 of them. You've got 4 of them, and 2, 3, 4. I wonder if we could. 1, 2, 3, 4. I might show you a picture in a sec. So you've got 4 of them, and then in between, let's put a plum gorgeous. So we'd use 3 plum gorgeouses. This is a little on-site garden design, and then for a bit of brightness, we'll just put 4. So that'll be plum gorgeous, and then stripy white liriope. So stripy white liriope is lovely and bright and that, and plum gorgeous is purple, and then we'd use the magnolia, the white fairy magnolia. White fairy magnolia. Now if I show you this, will they be able to see this? Have a look.
Yep.
So here's a little garden design for you. And what we have is these bigger ones here. Now they can be trimmed off just a bit above fence height, and they are your fairy magnolias. You find they grow quite quickly. They grow quite quickly. Beautiful crop of white fragrant flowers in springtime. Really very exotic and wonderful looking. And then in between each one, a nice plum gorgeous, which has purple foliage 365 days of the year. So we do 1, 2, 3 of the plum gorgeouses, and then these 1, 2, 3, 4 little grassy things. There's stripy white liriope, which is a lovely bright stripy kind of a liriope. So that's a little garden design for your back fence.
Amazing. All right, moving on to the next question. I have a lacy tree fern in a pot that I watered about a month ago. Since then, most of the fronds started wilting and turning yellow. Do you think it will survive?
Yeah, look, I used to live in the bush near the tree ferns, and in very dry times they can get quite miserable looking. What I reckon, the funny thing, what I'd do is I'd put a teaspoonful of sugar in that little hollow in the top, and I would soak the whole thing, give it a really good soak all over, soak the whole the sort of that furry brown kind of butt, the trunk of it, soak it all with a teaspoonful, just slowly soak it with a teaspoonful of sugar in that sort of hollow in the top, and then I'd keep it wet after that, say a little prayer, and I reckon there's a real good chance it'll shoot back up in spring.
Yeah. Next question from Avril. A native ground cover that would like a lot of shade, an area around 6 square meters. So far Jasmine hates it and has stunted growth. Want to try something else?
So native, Dichondra repens is a native, and Dichondra repens will grow in complete shade, deeper shade than a jasmine. So I think Dichondra repens as a native. Now if you're willing to go non-native in deep in the deepest darkest shade, your baby's tears, which is native to somewhere but not Australia. So baby's tears could go, but if you're sticking with Australian native, Dichondra repens, good hardy shade loving Australian native, that's really quite a pretty thing. And I thought of another one. I just remembered a friend of mine's got a very shady little corner with a fountain in it, and he's grown native violet around it. So native violet, now in a way native violet is better than a Dichondra repens, because Dichondra repens doesn't have much in the way of a showy flower, whereas your native violet will flower all year round. I have this little blue and white, little tiny blue and white cute little violet flower, and that sort of shines out all in amongst the foliage. So when I think about Dichondra repens will do fine, native violet will look a bit prettier.
Yep. Next question is, I would like to put some plants on my 2nd story balcony. I would like them to overhang. It gets all day sun and needs to cover about 2 meters of brickwork below.
Okay, So with a really good big pot and nice and hardy, like there's two things I could think of that would cascade down and do that beautifully, and I've seen them do it. One is your prostrate rosemary. Prostrate rosemary, very, very hardy, pale blue flowers for 3 or 4 months of the year. You can when you're cooking, you can go out there, lean off the deck and grab a bit. And people even use it in their some people use it with gin in their cocktails, but so it has a slight use. So prostrate rosemary, and prostrate rosemary in a good big high volume pot will hang 2 meters, and then probably hanging 1 meter and a bit. The other one you could look at, and it's Google it and have a look at it, is your Burrows tail. Your Burrows tail, beautiful succulent, very exotic looking, really, really nice. And Burrows tail would be the other one, and both of those would be fairly hardy. I take it that this spot's going to be quite exposed, so fairly hard. Both of those would be hardy in an exposed pot. Most other cascading things that hang a couple of meters aren't quite hardy enough for that sort of open kind of spot.
Yep. Next one is, I want an Australian small box hedge. Any suggestions? Gets morning sun, and I only want it to grow max 1 meter tall but very dense.
An Australian box. Was that
Australian small box hedge.
Yeah, okay. There's nothing that looks quite like an English box, but we've got very Aussie boxes, and I'm going to give you 3. One is a coastal rosemary, but better than that, you've got there's a company called Osbreed, and Osbreed have put out 2 really compact Westringias. One is called Grey Box, and we sell that one here. And Grey Box is a sort of a silvery grey colour and very, very compact. You could easily make a hedge that was 30-40 centimetres tall. And the other one is Aussie Box, which is a little bit more in the green end of the sort of the blue-grey spectrum, and both of those are very compact, and they're the Australian alternative to English box, and very Aussie looking. Don't look at all like, but they can be trimmed up just as you would a box hedge, or you could trim them into a sort of a series of little round balls and have a slightly different look to it. So, but both of those are really good for they're probably the best on the market for a compact Australian style hedge.
Yep. Next question is, let's see. How do I mix my own soil for succulents or houseplants?
Sorry, I can't hear.
How do I mix my own soil for succulents or houseplants?
Okay, if you just got your normal potting mix, and you bought some coarse river sand and you mix that through your normal potting mix, added a little Osmocote, you'd be in business.
Yeah.
So a nice coarse, don't use fine sand, use like a river sand.
Yeah. The next question is, what's your favourite plant and why?
Gee, that's an interesting question. I like so many plants. What am I really enjoying at the moment? Do you know, very hard to pick my absolute favourite, but I'm doing lots and lots of garden designs at the moment for people, and I reckon it's a funny thing, but it's not particularly showy. I'll just grab one here. This plant here is a cousin it, and I did a video about this, and I described it as a wonderful support act, and I guess I use it as that, and I use that in with exotic plants, and I use it in native gardens, and I think I'm using that more than almost, and one of these will cover a square metre. It'll cascade maybe a metre over an embankment, or over a retaining wall. And although it's not the showiest, the most amazing plant, I'm using it an awful lot in my garden designs because it's tough, it's easy to grow, and it sort of, its texture and its colour really makes other things shine. So it's kind of like it's a support act, but I'd call it a favourite because I really do use it, and when I see it well used in a garden, it really, really looks great.
Yep.
And I noticed quite a lot of people were using it this year in at Garden Week. It was in a lot of the displays in Garden Week, and so and that would be my favourite kind of tool or product that I put into, and I put into all different garden styles.
Next question is from Avril. Struggling with garden design, have you got any tips for a beginner going for the coastal native look?
Well, I reckon go to Pinterest and look at coastal. Go to Pinterest, look at your coastal native gardens, and be willing to throw a few non-natives. I don't think you need to do a pure native garden, but I've been doing coastal. Like I'm actually got one I'm working on this morning, and it's for a beachside in Adelaide, and I'm using all natives except I'm using. And it's going to work really, really well. I'm using a white flower and crepe myrtles as my main feature. So rather than having like an acacia or a eucalypt or something like that, and they'll look really great in that. And very often I'll use olives in my coastal. So I think to get them really great. And I just showed you my cousin it. Well, that's a must in every coastal, But yeah, I think go to Pinterest, get some ideas, but be willing to use a few non-natives in there, like me using the white flower and crepe myrtle, the Natchez crepe myrtle. So, and trimmed and topiarized or cloud-pruned olives, fabulous in your native coastal.
Yep. Next question is, have you ever used kitchen scraps like fruit peels or coffee grounds in your garden? Did it work?
Not directly. But yes, I think that particularly when I was younger, compost was the main way that we powered the garden, and it seems that you can have beautiful soil. You can make your soil, over years of gardening with compost, your soil will become really beautiful, because I think the little organisms that live in the compost then inhabit your soil, and your soil becomes sort of really, really healthy and good. But I think you'd use all of that stuff to compost, and what you do is you do layers of compost, and one of the biggest garden disasters I had was one time I bought, to keep it neat, I bought a compost bin, one of them plastic ones, and I threw the compost in it, and it turned into a sort of a disgusting anaerobic jelly that I had to sort of scoop up and take to the tip. I couldn't use it in the garden, and so I think the important thing with composting is like in the old days, everyone just used to have a heap, or they used to have like a wire mesh crate that they would keep it all in. But having little holes with airflow is really the key to it. Yeah.
Next question is from Gabby. I need to upgrade my devil's ivy to a bigger pot. Do I need to add anything, or is it fairly hardy?
Use a bigger pot. Use some good quality fresh new potting mix and a bit of Osmocote, and you should be fine.
Yeah. Next question. How do I know when it's time to prune, and what are some pruning tips?
Right, okay. So it varies with everything. Like say your deciduous trees and your roses, I reckon middle of August, so a week or so from now, particularly around Melbourne, your roses, you could be trimming them up. You can trim up your deciduous trees if they need trimming. I'm a great one for not trimming unless I have to. I don't trim out of habit or because I have to do it every year. I trim what needs to be trimmed when it needs to be trimmed. But your evergreens, say if I had box, say English box, I had a customer yesterday I did a garden design for, and their English box hedge had got out of hand, and I wanted them to take it right back. Well, English box starts growing at the end of September. So if you trim at the end of September, you're cutting off your new growth and losing your new growth. So I told them to cut their English box really hard next week. So I was going for next week for doing the English box for them. But other things like ficus and most lily pillies and that don't start growing till the end of September. So second or third week in September is when to cut them. So if you take evergreens, like a lot of people will have a big ficus that gets out of hand, or a big lily pilly or other big evergreen, and they might cut them back hard in autumn. And the problem is that they're not photosynthesizing. They're sitting there all winter long, not doing anything and not building up food reserves. So say with a lily pilly, an evergreen magnolia or a ficus, I would tend to trim up in mid-September so that by the end of September they start growing, and they're not long without foliage or without some of their foliage. So they're back. So evergreens that sort of take off and grow late, let's prune them in the mid of September. Your roses and your deciduous, let's prune them in the mid of August.
Yeah.
And hard pruning for most things, say at the end of summer or into autumn, I think it's the wrong time. Mm-hmm. And then with roses and with most things, light pruning through the summer, just to get them growing in the right places and getting rid of big scraggly things. So light pruning whenever you feel like it, but heavy pruning, I think, for deciduous and roses, mid-August, and for your slower growing evergreens that aren't going to move to the warm weather, mid-September.
Yeah. Next question is, trying to dig out a mature Gymea bay lily, which is at the top of a retaining wall. Is this possible with standard tools? Would you use chemicals to rot the stem?
A Gymea. And use chemicals to...
Is it possible with standard tools, or would you use chemicals to rot the stem?
And it's a Gymea lily?
Gymea bay lily.
Gymea bay lily. I reckon that they don't have like a main deep root or anything, and I think that you could dig a trench around it, cut underneath it, and dig it up and keep it in good condition, even put it somewhere else. So I think standard tools, a little bit of patience. A crowbar would be very good. A nice sharp spade and a crowbar would be what I'd want to do. And I dig a trench around it, and then I cut underneath it and pull it out.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't use chemicals.
Yeah. Next question is, how do I fertilize my plants without damaging the roots?
I would, something like Osmocote is designed, and there's other things apart from Osmocote. There's Nutricote and other slow release fertilizers out there. They're designed to let the problem with some of your uncoated or powdery sort of fertilizers is that you could have heavy rain or something, and then all the fertilizer becomes available at once, and you can kill the plants. I remember I had an uncle, and he bought a big lot of birches off me, and they were growing fabulously, and he thought, well, I'd like them to grow even better. So he put uncoated fertilizer on. He had a couple of days of very heavy rain. It all became soluble, it all washed in, and they were all dead within the week, and he was terribly upset. So whereas if he had have used a slow release like Osmocote, only some of it would have released and only some of it would have been available, and they wouldn't have died. And so particularly if you're not sure what you're doing, a coated fertilizer like an Osmocote, and even like Osmocote is a bit more expensive than your normal fertilizers, but because I've got staff that aren't as experienced or knowledgeable as me, when I'm getting them to fertilise, I tend to want to use Osmocote, because although it's more expensive, it's very hard for them to damage the plants or the roots with a slow release fertiliser. Even if they want to wreck them, it's hard to do it because it won't do it because of the slow release nature.
Yeah. Next question is, what's the most difficult plant you've ever tried to care for?
I've found, and I've never really been successful with it, what do you call them, your fiddle leaf fig. Fiddle leaf fig, they should be called the fickle leaf fig, because they're very hard to keep them together. People say don't water them, You know, they say all different things, but and then what it is, I've been to people's places who don't know anything about gardening, and they've got the most fabulous one they've had for years. It's doing fantastically. So it's a matter of having the right warmth, the right light, the right watering, the right thing. And some people seem to get it right by accident, and then some people like me can't even get it right when they kind of know what they're doing. So I think fiddle leaf figs are particularly hard to keep looking good.
Amazing. Just letting everyone know there's only 5 minutes left of the live Q&A. We do this every Monday though, 12 p.m. to 12:45 p.m. on a bunch of different platforms. So whatever platform you're on right now, we will be on again next week. So for any other questions that want to be answered today, make sure to get them in now before we wrap up in 5 minutes. While I give people some time to get in their last minute questions, do you want to tell them about our live this Friday?
Okay, so this Friday, and what it is, there's a lot of excitement here at the moment where most nurseries and big department stores and that ordered their roses early, and they've run out, or they've only got a few of the scraps left. We have taken in about 5,000 roses in the last few weeks, and we've got this amazing range of roses, and then we've taken in thousands of bare-rooted trees from different growers, and we've bought them in at a discount price, and we're putting them out at a discount price. And so what's happening in our nursery is that and we're flat out every day here now, because we've got people are coming in and they're buying maple trees that are 3 meters tall for $20. They're buying standard roses for $14.99. They're buying they're buying ornamental pears for $14.99. And so that's what's happening in the nursery. And then on Friday, we're going to put up 100 specials, really, really cheap, and a lot of them are going to be bare-rooted specials, and there'll be specials that you can get right now, but you won't be able to get later on. And what I do is I go through those. It's called our Grower Direct Flash Sale. It's products direct from the grower, and we put them up for sale, and people buy them.
Amazing. Yep. So be sure to join us this Friday, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. on whatever platform you'd like. We're on pretty much every platform. So alright, we got one of our last questions. Can you send or sell to quarantine states such as Tasmania?
We can, but it's very difficult and very expensive. What I suspect is that the Tasmanian government has set out to protect its, and it's much cheaper to send stuff to Germany or Switzerland or Ireland or anywhere than it is to Tasmania. So what it is, they've made it very expensive and very difficult for plants to move from the mainland. And I think it may, and it's the same in Western Australia. And I think it's they've put up a biological barrier to protect their local industries, their local nursery industries, which may or may not be a good thing. You know, like it is good to have a local nursery industry, and certainly the Victorians are not flooding Tasmania with plants because it's very difficult to send. There are only a few nurseries do it, and it's a very expensive and difficult process to get plants into Tasmania.
Yeah. Next question is, what are some of the best early spring blossoms?
Prunus Bleriana, I think that came out last week, and then this morning as I was driving to work, it was looking absolutely fabulous. Now that's beautifully fragrant. I think we've got a video coming out this week about it. It's beautifully fragrant, but what's great about it is that because it's coming out in such early cold weather, it lasts about a month or 5 weeks, whereas your other blossoms that come out later in the warmer weather do not last as long. So, and then we did very hard to get, we did a weeping apricot a week ago, and that is just out of this world. And again, that'll be a long-lasting blossom because it's coming in such early cold weather. And the other blossom that we've done is an interesting one. It's something that was around everywhere when I was a kid, and now quite rare. It's the flowering quince, and we've done two videos about flowering quince recently. One will come out this week, and one I think came out last week about the white flowering quince. And so there's some of flowering quinces, Prunus Bleriana, and then the next one to come out It's not one of my favourite trees, but it's one of my favourite blossoms is your Prunus albans. It's kind of white with a kind of a light pink blush through it, and it's like this beautiful soft cloud of the most beautiful. You should Google it and have a look. And the thing with Prunus albans, we have them here for sale in the nursery. It's not a brilliant feature tree, so it's a tree that in a garden design I tend to put in the background so that it leaps out at you when it's in flower and sort of disappears when it's not in flower. But Prunus albans and Prunus bleriana would be two of the best blossoms that you'll see all season, and they're nice and early.
Yeah. All right, well, that is it for today. Thank you everyone for joining us. As I said before, we do this every Monday, 12 p.m. to 12:45 on whatever platform you are on right now. And we also have our live sale happening this Friday, 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. And in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, so join me 12 o'clock on your favourite platform this Friday for our Grow Direct flash sale, and I'll take you through 100 really amazing specials. Thank you, bye.